Othering Podcast explores the world of marginalized communities with a focus on the disabled and LGBTQ+. In our discussions, we will provide a platform for our guests to advocate and share their stories. By delving deep into their difficulties and successes, we will explore the changes necessary to improve lives everywhere. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory. Step inside a world where animals walk, talk, and think just like us. This collection of 30 short stories, each starring unforgettable anthropomorphic characters, is written with one simple philosophy. Everyone is welcome at the zoo.
Created for readers of all ages, these stories celebrate diversity, imagination, and the joy of seeing the world through different eyes. From clever foxes to thoughtful elephants, every tale offers humor, heart, and a fresh perspective on what it means to be human, told through the voices of the creatures we love. Whether you're looking for a quick read, a thoughtful escape, educational value, or even a modern set of bedtime stories, Welcome to the Zoo is your ticket to adventure.
Welcome to the Zoo is available now on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and free with Kindle Unlimited.
Welcome to the Zoo by Paul Smith.
PEP Radio, part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, advocates for the rights of LGBTQ+ people, the disabled, and marginalized communities. We play music from all 7 continents from 1928 through 2025 in English, Spanish, German, African tribal languages, Korean, and Japanese. We also offer news, history lessons, and are proud to include the Othering Podcast in our programming lineup. Tune in on the Live 365 app, Roku, and Alexa every Saturday and Sunday at 4 p.m.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you both?
Good.
Good. Okay, today we are talking to Emma. Emma is a PhD researcher with endometriosis. She is a chronic pain and gynecological health advocate, and some of her research as a literary scholar is informed by her own experience of chronic and invisible illness. She is also very eager to share her experiences of navigating chronic illness and chronic pain alongside academia. Welcome, Emma. It's an honor to have you.
So let's start with your PhD studies. So what kind of drove you to literature?
I've always been interested in literature ever since I was in kind of secondary school, high school. It's just always been something I've been interested in. I've always liked reading, especially as a young child. And sort of during my last year of my undergraduate into my master's degree, I just really found this kind of passion for the 19th century, and that's where it all kind of stems from, really.
I like 19th century. So you're a Jane Austen nerd.
I am a very big Jane Austen nerd.
I have to admit that at first I kind of wasn't interested in her and, various other books because I thought stupidly that it was, chick lit. That's what everything kept saying, it was chick lit. But then I actually saw a movie. One of the movies, actually, I think it was Mansfield Park. And the commentary and the whole just visual aspects of how society was towards people, class, women, things like that. And it actually drew me in, and I was like, you know what, this isn't chick lit. What the hell are these people talking about? Just because a chick wrote it doesn't mean it's chick lit. And it was really good. And then I saw multiple versions of Sense and Sensibility. Yeah. And I have to say my favorite one is the BBC one with damn it, what's his name? The one from, oh God. Because I saw him in
with that one British guy?
Yeah, that one British guy.
I like the 1995 one. I don't think I've seen
the 1995 version was a good one, but my favorite is still the more recent BBC version with the guy from, it's not Upstairs, Downstairs, it was the other one. By Julian Fellows. Oh my God, Downton Abbey. Yes.
I know who you. I love Downton Abbey as well. Actually.
Yes, I do too. Which is why I was like, why can't I remember the damn show I was watching? But I liked that one because I felt like it told the story a little bit better, in my opinion, than definitely the 96 movie with Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
No offense to Emma Thompson, I just felt like she was a little too old for the role.
Yeah, it's supposed to be quite young. Like Alan Rickman's good, but again, I think he's a bit too old. But to be fair, the films got me into Jane Austen, to be honest. I watched the Gwyneth Paltrow Emma one Christmas, and then I took an Austen module, and it's all just come from there.
Yeah, that one's not bad. I liked her Emma. She did a pretty good accent too. She's one of the few that I think do a really good accent. Some other than like Keira Knightley, who I know is British, but for some reason her accent just like, you sound fake, like an American trying to do a British accent.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
It's weird though, because it's like, I know she's British, so obviously her accent can't possibly be fake, but it's just, it doesn't.
It sounds weird.
Yes, it sounds totally weird comparatively to other accents from that region that, unfortunately we get to hear that are kind of it's usually the Queen's English that we're exposed to, so we don't get to hear a lot of the different dialects.
No.
And
I need to be careful with my my accent, because I'm kind of a what I'm trying to say, a twang of Liverpool. So I'm trying.
I love Liverpudlian accents. Those are good. I can't understand Geordie though, so.
No, to be fair, me neither.
But there's always that one accent in every country, I think, where everybody's just like, what did you speak? What are you speaking?
I don't watch any of those movies. I don't read any of those books. I don't have much to say to this conversation.
That's because I haven't dragged you in yet. My dad loves them. He watches, I think, my parents have Sense and Sensibility on DVD, so I think he's watched it more often than my mom has, so he's like got it memorized. And then Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley, he's got memorized as well.
Yeah, I made my poor mum watch all the adaptations with me, so she knows what I'm talking about. She's not read any of the books, but she's watched all the adaptations, so I'm like, oh, watch that film, yeah.
They're good films, they're good stories.
Oh, yeah. And as you say, there's a lot like a social message. So
yes.
With my PhD specifically, I'm looking at kind of the health aspect and kind of viewing, certainly in my first PhD chapter, so probably about 20,000 words worth of looking at kind of health and how invisible illnesses and chronic illnesses and things like that can be kind of, obviously we can't retrospectively diagnose, but kind of like look at how people may have suffered in the period and how that can kind of be read today as invisible or chronic illness or disability and things like that. So that's something I'm really interested in, and bringing my own kind of lived experience to that.
So how have you discovered, like, within, say, Jane Austen world, what characters do you feel like retroactively would have been probably suffering from invisible illnesses?
The biggest focus, I love Persuasion. Persuasion's my favourite Jane Austen novel. And I've done a lot of that because my PhD is based around the seaside. Anyone who'll know me knows I'm into, like, that's my big thing as well as Jane Austen, like looking at the seaside. And how the seaside was kind of like a place to go to kind of not only be seen and be fashionable and kind of enjoy the leisure aspect, but kind of that health aspect too. In the turn of the 19th century, kind of spa towns and seaside resorts were popular for kind of the health aspects and like the sea air and sea bathe and things like that. So I look at Persuasion because they go to Lyme Regis in Persuasion, and also her unfinished novel Sanditon, which it's like 13 chapters or 12 chapters. If you've not read that, I really recommend, because that's all based on kind of illness and what they call the invalid. I use that a lot. Obviously, it's a kind of not a term that we would use today, but kind of using it again retrospectively within the context of the time, it does come up a lot because people are kind of called invalids and mocked and things like that. And I think Austen's interesting because she kind of satirises the trend to kind of perform illness or be portrayed in this kind of like I'm trying to like kind of do a brief summary here without going off tangent. I'll be talking about it for hours. But characters specifically, kind of Captains Benwick and Harville from Persuasion are both Navy veterans, both injured in the Napoleonic Wars, and their illnesses kind of make them. One is physically disabled. I think he has an issue with his leg, and the other has got some sort of kind of like issues with maybe PTSD. Obviously, again, we can't label that, but kind of trauma and things like that. And then in Sanditon, everyone has got some kind of illness in some way. But Arthur Parker specifically, and his sister, his sisters, Susan and Diana, are both ill. Mm-hmm. And they kind of focus on specifically and reading a lot about like pain and kind of perceptions of pain. And there's this scholar, again, I'm going a bit academic here, I apologise.
No,
there's this
you're
scholar
fine.
called Pauline Scarry, and she's got a book, I think it's from the 80s now, called The Body in Pain. And kind of, she basically says people who don't have pain or have illness can look at someone, and based on how they appear, you think, oh, well, there's nothing quote unquote wrong with them, so they must be healthy. And obviously, invisible illnesses and people with chronic illnesses don't always look like they have quote unquote something wrong with them. Mm-hmm. And kind of linking it through that.
I like that. Mm-hmm. That's truly actually fascinating. Now, oh, damn it, now I want to do it too. I want to study with you, because that would just be fascinating to go through all of the stories with a new lens of, disabilities and invisible illnesses, because thinking in terms, in general, when you watch those movies, any movie actually, you don't always think in terms of, are they suffering from certain things, because a lot of times it's kind of or they don't necessarily portray it in a way that makes you realize they have a disease or they have something wrong that bothers them, because or the story's just so more kind of prominent that you don't necessarily pay attention. But to be able to kind of go back with that lens of, I'm disabled, I want to go back and look at how they were treated or talked about, is quite fascinating.
It really is, yeah. It's something that I find really interesting to kind of, obviously I'm not going to go around and go like, you've got endometriosis, but it's interesting to see how like characters complain of certain things, or even if it's kind of portrayed for humour, because Arthur Parker in Sanditon is kind of, he's kind of portrayed as a kind of funny character. He's got, everything you could possibly have wrong with him, and the narrator, Charlotte, she basically says, well, they look fine to me, so, he's obviously just making it up, and it's obviously a bit of a joke. And obviously you can take that as kind of Austen satirising people who kind of perform illness for like maybe a social status or whatever. But then you can read it into it deeply and go, well, if someone looked at me, they might not necessarily know that I have something wrong with me. They might not know I have chronic pain or endometriosis. There's days when I do use a walking stick to get around. But if I don't have that, if I'm having a good day, then you could look at me and go, well, she's all right. But obviously you don't always know, just by looking at somebody. And it's just really interesting to kind of put my lived experiences as someone who has chronic illness and kind of suffers with a lot of pain, to kind of just consider that.
I think it's brilliant.
How we treat people today with disabilities and illness. Yeah. And it's really fun.
It is. I mean, I could sit here for hours talking with you about that, because I would love to, see, different stories back then, especially around the 1800s, when a lot more, they were starting to kind of get a better picture of bodies and how people thought and everything like that. So a lot of, sorry, my train of thought just went like right out the window. Basically, they were starting to kind of get a better idea of what are true ailments and versus what are, people just saying to get out of doing something.
Yeah.
And was it perfect? Absolutely not. We still had a lot of, people getting put in institutions for just because they said no, or, ridiculous things like that. And being able to understand that illnesses were around back then and not necessarily put into institutions is kind of a refreshing take too.
Yeah.
Because
Really, oh, sorry, go
no,
on.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was thinking, say, like, again, this is the Jane Austen nerd in me, but Jane Austen had a brother, George, who is hardly ever included. She had a lot of brothers and sisters, well, one sister, a lot of brothers, included in a lot of the kind of biographies of Austen. One brother, this George specifically, because he was disabled. And we don't know exactly what happened to him. No surviving letters make any reference to him at all. Whether they just weren't written or they were destroyed, we don't know. Austen's sister Cassandra destroyed a lot of her letters after her death to kind of protect the family's legacy. I'm saying listen to it again, more Jane Austen.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, so this brother George, he had a disabled uncle as well. I think one of Austen's mother's brothers, and together they kind of, rather than being put in some sort of institution, they were both put with this family who specialised in caring for people with disabilities, and lived quite, for the time, quite a kind of well looked after and well, with more compassion, say, than some other people would have been. So that again, there's a link there that a lot of people kind of don't know about.
Yeah. And that's important to know too, because, history books, especially here, are just like, well, everybody was in an institution. Because it's just, or, everybody was enslaved, or everybody was this, or everybody was that.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to know about the stories where they weren't, treated poorly or, mistreated. And it kind of helps give you a better picture of what was going on around that time, how people's perceptions were able to change. Because it wasn't like a lightning in a bottle moment where it's like kaboom, and then all of a sudden people are like, you know what? Let's not put them in institutions.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fascinating to be able to look back with a better, clearer lens of how we live today versus how they lived.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I have a family member now. Again, of course, we don't know for sure because diagnoses weren't necessarily talked about. But there's a family member, I want to say 1800s or 1700s, and based on the pictures, they looked like they had autism. But they were, very well taken care of, and they weren't put in an institution. They were loved. They were in a happy environment. And I like hearing those stories that people were in good environments, not always about the horrors that we can do to people.
Yeah, it is interesting to kind of have that more positive outlook on the past, because as you say, like, obviously mistakes were made as a nation and as, a people. We have grown from it, and we treat people, well, hopefully, like to think in a lot of cases better than we did in the past. And a lot of this comes down, doesn't it, to understanding and kind of social stigma and things like that. But as you say, it's nice to see that people kind of were accepted and kind of were, taken care of properly, and not just shunned and, as you say, locked up and things like that. And I think it's nice to see that there is a kind of more positive side to history, obviously within the time. Even probably what was positive back 200 years ago probably wouldn't be to the standard that we have today, but there was an effort made, and people weren't just kind of completely dismissed based on disabilities and illnesses and things. And that's why research is so important, because it does bring the positive side out to the past.
Yeah, and you learned so much more about it. Like, for instance, my thinking at first, because of, certain movies and social media and things like that, saying, oh, Jane Austen's just chick lit, and it's just about love this and love that. And yeah, there are elements of love in it because of the time period.
Yeah.
You couldn't do much of anything unless you had, that man on your arm. And what was revolutionary, and a lot of people don't realize, was that she was talking about doing it for love, not for status.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of people back then were doing it for status.
For economic security and state,
Right.
Yeah.
And so, she talks about love, but it's the revolutionary idea of, but I want to marry for love, not just for this statistics of being able to say, I've got this amount of money. or anything.
Yeah.
And showing that marrying for love can be, you know, just as fulfilling, if not better. I'd say, I would argue it's better.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was ignorant to those ideals at first until I started thinking, but wait a minute, back then you didn't get to marry for love. It was always about, well, you're at this status and it's better to either marry up or your own level. And so I think love is an important aspect of
And love was a
her
big
stories because of the fact that it was a revolutionary idea. Sorry, I'm like getting off topic because I just think she's a really good.
All day, yeah.
She's a really good writer. So I want to ask about your journey discovering your endometriosis, because I know that some people, it takes at least on average 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say she was featured in the Chronic Panicles.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
remember from way early in the podcast, we talked to Katie, end of May. She has the Chronic Panicles, and Emma was featured in there in the endometriosis section.
Yes, she was.
I'm a little nepo baby. But yeah, so my journey, I suppose, I've always had painful and heavy periods. I started my periods about 9 or 10. I was speaking to my mum about this the other day. We think it's probably like 9, like into being 10, because I was born quite premature. I was £1.6 when I was born. I was born at 27 weeks, so I had precocious puberty because of that. And therefore I started my periods early, everything like that. So I'd say probably maybe I was like 13 or 14 when I really kind of started being aware that I had painful periods and heavy periods. And you know, I've always known that I was like kind of someone who just had that. But it was probably, trying to think now, during my undergrad. So I started my undergraduate degree at 18, and in 2019. And then obviously during 2020, COVID happened, so everything got shut down. And it was probably during 2020, 2021 when I really started to do something about it, really, because I just couldn't carry on. You know, I was just in agony. I was kind of bleeding through multiple pads of a night, having to kind of get up and change and things like that. And since then, I've become a lot more open in discussing menstrual health. I don't think it's something that should be kind of hidden away. I was the kid in school who always had like a pad in my blazer, and if a friend needed it, you know, they could always ask me because I always had spare stuff on me because, you know, it was unpredictable. So I always had supplies and things. But I remember like kind of shoving it in like through our sleeves or something in our blazers in school, trying to like it was something secret that we weren't allowed to share. Like, you know, if you got any pads, like it's kind of important. But yeah, so kind of 2020, 2021, so I was like, what, 19, 20. I went to the GP, again, because of COVID. It was a lot of phone calls. And my GP didn't have a kind of regular GP, so it was someone different every single time I had a phone call. It was someone new who had kind of was hearing this for the first time, and I got fobbed off with the usual, you know, go on the pill. I was already on the pill for my acne, and they were like, well, change your pill. And I was like, well, I don't really want to do that because this one's working for my acne. You know, I got the usual, well, you're young, it's just your hormones, some people just have this, whatever. And I think it was not until my 3rd year, so this would have been 2022, that this doctor phoned me, and he went, because I had some tests, I had some blood tests and an MRI and things like that. And he went, I think you've got endometriosis, have you heard of that? And I was like, no. So I did a lot of Googling, as I said in Katie's article, like I was like Googling and going, oh, you know, what's this? And I read it and I thought, you know what, that really makes sense. You know, a lot of the symptoms were what I was kind of dealing with. And funnily enough, it was a male GP, because you'd expect a female GP to be a bit more understanding. But all the women GPs that I saw were just like, oh, you know, you're just a girl, it's fine. And it took this one well, I don't want to say unfortunately, but a very compassionate male doctor who knew what he was talking about and went, this just does not sound normal. Referred me to gynecology. I've then tried different pills because I was at the point where I just thought I just need some relief. During my third year, I had to have extensions on my final year assignments at university because there was days when I just could not leave the bed. I just couldn't get up. I was in so much pain. And I sent I'm under a gynecologist and I've got all these painkillers. I was on naproxen, cocodamol. They say, oh, have you tried taking ibuprofen and paracetamol together? And you're like, well, yeah, of course I have. That's not touched the sides.
Yeah.
So I think that's people with chronic pain often get that. If you try just taking them together, and it's like, well, yeah, that's not touched anything. So finally we got somewhere with proper painkillers, which kind of helped me manage a lot more. And then it wasn't until 2023, finally, that I had my laparoscopy to see what was going on, because the MRIs I had kind of weren't showing anything up. And although my gynecologist was lovely, she was really supportive, and she said, yeah, I do think you've got endometriosis. She was a general gynecologist, she wasn't a specialist. So she did find 2 spots of endometriosis, which she burned away. The process is called diathermy, which isn't the best thing to do. If I knew then what I knew now, I would have said, can we do excision? But afterwards, when I woke up and she's like, oh yeah, I found some, we burned it away, I'd have gone, well, could you not do excision? And I didn't even ask the question, but she actually said to me, like, we can't do excision because I'm not skilled enough and we don't have the tools to do that. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
Which I was saying, however, our email exchanged, I'm actually having another laparoscopy tomorrow, this time with a specialist who does do excision. Because the metaphor I like to use, I like a metaphor, again, being an English student, it kind of comes naturally, is if you have a weed in the garden and you just cut the top off, you can't see the weed. It's a bit like diathermy, you're kind of burning it away on the top level, but underneath the ground, the roots are still there. And if you cut the roots out, obviously the plant won't grow back, or the weed won't grow back, if at all, or if it does, it's slower. And excision is like that. So that's what I'm hoping will happen. Fingers crossed.
Yes, I've got my fingers crossed for you.
Have you noticed relief since she burned it? Did you notice any relief?
I did at first. I also had the Mirena put in. I don't know if you have that in the States.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the Mirena put in. So I haven't had a period or a proper period for 2 years, which has been absolutely glorious. Because a lot of my pain kind of came with that. But I have pelvic pain outside of my period, which is another endometriosis sign. So just to kind of reaffirm. Because after she discharged me, she was like, oh yeah, I burnt off 2 spots of endometriosis, but you've got chronic pelvic pain. And I was like, but you found endometriosis and burned it away, but you're not going to diagnose me with it? I was like, this seems weird.
Yeah,
so
it does.
I've unofficially kind of got endometriosis, but given she burnt it off and showed me a picture of the camera going on the laparoscope, I'm assuming, it is there. So I'm hoping tomorrow he finds more and cuts it away, because I've started having sciatic-y pains, on my sciatic nerve. And I'm concerned, this specialist I've spoken to, he said it could be either it's going on the sciatic nerve, or it could be very, very low, which is causing referred pain into my leg. So yes, I found that my pelvic pain helped, the symptoms of that went away or were more manageable, for sure. But kind of about 6 months after I had that laparoscopy, the leg pain started. And no one knows what to do with me. I've been referred to orthopedics, I've had steroid injections in my hip. That didn't help at all, because he basically said, well, if it helps, then it's orthopedic, and if it doesn't, it's not orthopedic. And I was like, well, that's also not very useful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I told you that one myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in some ways it's helped, but I'm hoping this time with it. And again, I've kind of gaslit myself into thinking, well, what if I don't have endometriosis and I'm not going to find anything tomorrow? And I've just made it all up. But I think everyone kind of goes through that with chronic pain.
Definitely. I still do.
Yeah.
I know I have CRPS. I've seen countless doctors about the chronic pain in my legs, and I still, like, the other night I was thinking, well, maybe it's just in my head, and maybe I'm just, manifesting these pains because some trauma or some weird thing going on. And I gaslight myself all the time about that.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, you have a day where you feel okay, and then you're like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? And then next week you're like, oh no, there is something wrong with me.
Yeah, exactly.
And then with periods, everyone says, oh, it's just a bad period.
Yeah.
You're fine. No one takes any of that seriously.
Definitely not. And I wanted to kind of mention the fact that you said that you started around 9, 10. I also started at the age of 9. I was late baby, though. I wasn't getting out of the womb for nothing. I was comfortable.
I was like the opposite. I was like, get me out of here.
And but starting at 9, I remember one period being just like, oh, what is everybody talking about?
Yeah.
And that was my first period. And then after that, I remember every month, sometimes every other month, I was horribly irregular and just banging my head on the desk or the walls, or just curling up into the tightest ball possible because of the pain, just excruciating from my back to my front, and just like everything was in pain. And I kept mentioning that, and oh, well, you're a girl. That's what happens to girls.
Yeah.
Or are you sexually active? Is that why? Maybe that's, because you're sexually active or something like that. Some bullshit.
Yeah. You're young. You'll be all right when you're older. It's like, well.
Or just have kids. Okay.
At the age of 10?
Yeah.
I'm 24 now. This started as like 13, 14. And when I was referred to the gynecologist, as lovely as she was, she did say to me, well, I'm a baby, that might help. And I'm like, I was 20, 21. I was like, no, I want to go to university. I want to, do my master's, and now I'm doing my PhD. I've not got time for a baby.
Right. Yeah, I did my ED after having 3 kids, and I don't recommend that. I mean, if that's how you have to do it, then that's, how you have to do it.
Yeah,
but I definitely recommend getting your PhD, ED, MD, all of those doctorates before you have children, because the lack of sleep and just everything is, just the anxiety and everything that you have just getting your degree, and then on top of trying to be mommy.
Exactly.
Is hard. And so I don't wish that on my worst enemy. It's not to say that I don't love my degrees. I do. And I'm glad I was able to, fry my brain well enough to do it. But it definitely does fry your brain when you're trying to do both. But I just don't understand why the first thing is, well, just have a baby.
And for people with endometriosis as well, like, you can't always have children. It can affect fertility. So it seems a bit nonsensical to go, well, have a baby or try and have a baby. And you might get 9 months of relief, but then you've also got a child to look after and try to look after yourself. It's kind of, if you want children, that's fine. But it's selfish to say, I'm going to have this baby, which is a living, breathing creature, just in case it makes my symptoms feel better.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Bizarre.
And, I was told I wasn't going to have children because I was so irregular, and it turns out that I had PCOS, and, I discovered this after I had my kids. But they told us, you're not going to have kids, so good luck with that. and they never addressed my pain, my excruciating pain, to the point of where I had to take 2-3 days off of school and be in bed with heating pads galore, if possible, on the hottest setting to even remotely relieve some of it. And
you can't get times burn in your stomach.
And
it's like, well, that's not normal.
It's not. And anybody saying that it's normal to want to basically burn holes in your stomach, no.
No, absolutely not.
I would like use my fists and ball up my fists and like push as
Yeah.
far as I could in my stomach to try to alleviate the pain.
Yeah. I know, it's shocking. It is shocking. And I know there's a kind of, not all women menstruate and not all those who menstruate are women, but because gynecology, because endometriosis is linked, it's kind of thrown into it. It's just a gynae issue. But I was reading this excellent book. It's called Endometriosis by Jen Moore, and she has got endometriosis, adenomyosis herself, and she's actually said, which I read for the first time ever, that endometriosis has been found in cisgender men. It's not just a female issue or a assigned female at birth issue. There has been endometriosis found in cisgender men who don't have, any female anatomy. So it isn't just a quote unquote women's issue,
Right.
but because periods are kind of women centered, people just don't really care about them enough, and there's not enough funding.
And it's ridiculous and it's angering because let's just say, for shits and giggles, that endometriosis was just found in females assigned at birth.
Yeah.
I mean, assigned female at birth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it's due to, our menstruation cycles and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Even if it's that, it should matter to people.
Of course.
You shouldn't want to sit there and watch your wife, your girlfriend, your sister, your mother, whoever it is, your best friend, them, people suffering.
Exactly. It's just not fair in the slightest.
And it boggles my mind that people are like, oh, well, it's just a woman's issue. So why are you okay with watching people that you're related to or even you're not related to suffering?
Exactly. I mean, I think it's that 1 in 10 people assigned female at birth have endometriosis, and they're now thinking it could be 1 in 7, not even 1 in 10. It could be more frequent than that.
I bet you it's even more frequent than that. Because so many of us are just like, oh, well, that's just being a woman. Gross. Take it back.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
yeah, I think if men were ones who suffered with endometriosis, I think it would probably be God by now, or at least have more funding attached to it, because endometriosis is as common as asthma, as diabetes. I think it's type 2 diabetes.
yes.
And, everyone's heard of asthma, everyone's heard of diabetes. Not that many people have heard of endometriosis, but yeah, it occurs the same amount. So, as you say, it should be a lot more funding and a lot more awareness going on. And thankfully, in the recent years, that is happening, but probably not soon and not quickly enough.
And it's also probably a lot of men are suffering, men assigned at birth, cisgender men are probably suffering in silence too, because they don't realize what's going on. And, you're supposed to, if you're a man, especially cisgender, you got to be like tough and tough and rumble, and you can take it, and just every pain you have, just walk it off. All that crap. So who knows how many men are out there suffering from this.
Yeah, it is mad. It really is.
And it shouldn't be that both genders, both sexes have to suffer in order for people to say, you know what, this isn't okay, this isn't right. It's just, sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox here, but it's maddening, because I don't know if I have or had endometriosis, but I know that fucking horrible pain of just, I wanted to cut off my lower half.
Yeah, oh yeah, I felt the same way.
And like, it was excruciating. I couldn't, go to school half the time. And when Mike and I first got together, I mean, sex was painful. And which they don't mention a lot of times. And just like trying to, TMI, but it's important to say, trying to have insertion, even of just like a tampon, was painful.
Oh yeah, I can't use tampons because it's too painful. Like, I just can't do it. Like, it shouldn't have to be this way, as you say, for people to care about it.
Right. I mean, I would bleed through, and like there was because I was riding horses, wearing a pad was just like, no. I'd bleed all over the horse or something too. So, but I would end up having to wear like a tampon and a pad because I would bleed so much.
Yeah.
And like,
I'm sorry that you went through that.
I'm sorry that you go through that. I'm just like, nobody should have to go through that. And
Absolutely.
I mean, I appreciate you saying that. And it's just, but it angers me that people today are still suffering like that. One of our kids suffered to the point of where, like my mom, threw up and things like that. And they're like, oh, well, that's just being a girl. No, it's not.
It's not normal, no. Like, I used to have to have days off school. I remember I was in so much pain once. It was actually an English class, so maybe that's where my love of English always came from. But my teacher was like, "You do not look well. Like, are you okay?" And I was like, "I really don't feel well at all." And I ended up being sick in the bathroom. Luckily, I managed to get there in time, and she tried to get me sent home. Because she was like, "You do not look well at all." I went to in my school. We had to go to the nurse's office to to go to the reception to get sent to the nurse's office, which it seems illogical, but anyway. And because I'd recently been off for a procedure to do with my cystic acne, she went, "Well, you've had too much time off school, so you can't go home. You've just got to go back to class and get on with it," basically. And I wish I could say to her now, "Look, I have endometriosis. Like, I wasn't just making it up. I wasn't just trying to go home from school because I couldn't be bothered. I loved school. Like, I enjoy academia. I loved learning. I've always been a fan of being in school and, wanting to do it. I would never have, feigned illness to go home." But she just assumed, or maybe I was, or just the fact that, you've had enough absences and that's it, you can't go home. And I had to just go back to class and put up with it for the rest of the day. And I remember my teacher being absolutely horrified. She was like, "You don't look well at all." But that was the way it was.
Yeah, there was times when I was told, well, just go back to class and, you've missed so much or as well. And, just try and power through.
Yeah.
Okay, let me punch you in every organ and see how well you get through your day.
Yeah. No.
Did you have issues with fellow students at school, bullying or anything like that?
No, to be fair, everyone was quite good about it. I mean, I was kind of like the nerdy kid, so I had that group of friends who were kind of equally as nerdy, and I had a good support system around me. Especially my mum. My mum was always believed me. She's always validated my pain and my experiences, advocated for me to go to the doctors and stuff in the first place. She never was like, "Oh, well, you're just a girl, so get on with it." She's always taken everything seriously, which I've been really thankful for. But no, there was times when I had to miss out on things in school, and it's not fun because you feel like you're different from everybody else because you have to have time off or whatever. But yeah, it's just, to be fair, like having the support system now, like having friends with chronic illnesses, like obviously, you've had Katie on. We met at uni, unrelated to our chronic illnesses and chronic pain, but as we've become friends, it's become apparent that we both have, chronic illnesses and chronic pain. And it's great to have someone, so close to you, a really, really close friend who understands that, because you need to have "Look, I can't make it today," or "I don't feel well today," or whatever it is. There's someone who kind of, albeit with different diagnoses, does know what you're going through.
Yeah. It helps. It helps so much, especially with mental health, because you don't feel like, what's wrong with me? Why am I the only one? I don't have anybody to talk to because nobody else experiences pain like this.
Yeah.
And which is also why, I think we need to talk a lot more about all of our pains, whether it's anal or vaginal or penal, and not, incarceration penal, but like penises.
Quote unquote, an embarrassing or an intimate issue,
Yeah.
it's still a valid thing to speak about. And I think a lot of people don't speak about things like endometriosis, PCOS, adenomyosis, because there is a taboo attached to menstruation, and a lot of people do feel embarrassed to speak about it. So people who may be suffering don't ever go to the doctors about it because they feel embarrassed saying, I have painful periods, or I have, whatever other symptoms, or, sex is painful, things like that. It can be embarrassing for people to speak about, and I do acknowledge that. It's important that people, despite it, still do kind of raise the issues. Like I said, I've got to the point now where I'm like, yeah, I'll talk about periods to anyone. It doesn't faze me, it doesn't embarrass me anymore. But there was a time, especially as a teenager, when it did. And no matter what, someone's going through, even if it's like, because you go to someone with a rash on your arm or whatever, yeah, you can talk about that quite easily. But if it's something intimate or something quote unquote embarrassing, then people don't discuss it, and it gets stigmatized, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I remember being a teenager in the 90s, and I mean, we did the same thing where we would hide it in our hands and, like we would wrap it in paper or something to make it look like we were passing notes. I mean, we would rather get in trouble for passing notes than passing tampons.
Yeah.
And I mean, we would pass pads in the hall. And I remember an incident where one of my friend's purses fell over, and somebody grabbed the pads and tampons and said, so and so, is this yours? Holding it up for the entire hallway to see. And she was mortified. We laughed hysterically, but she was mortified.
Yeah.
And
When you're a teenager, it is embarrassing, isn't it? Because,
yeah.
Most people starting out there do have periods, but even though everyone else is suffering, you kind of, even then, you don't want to admit it and talk about it.
Right. But blood happens.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, if you cut your finger off, you're not going to hide it.
Exactly. Yeah. This is acceptable blood, so I won't hide this.
All blood is acceptable. We have to get over the stigma, as hard as it is, and realize that people assigned female at birth are going to bleed, possibly. Some don't.
Some do, yeah. Some don't, of course. But a lot of people do.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Oh, yeah. And we can't keep going, feeling like we're in the dark ages where, oh my God, we have to have our own tent, or, we have to wear a certain color at that time of the month, or we can't be touched or anything like that. It's blood. It's just, basically it's cushioning.
Yeah.
That we're getting rid of. You don't keep the couches once the cushions, falter. You get rid of the couch, right? That's what blood is. And when we're bleeding that one time of the month, we're getting rid of the bad cushions. And if that's the only way you can, talk about it is in metaphorical terms, then do it that way. Whichever way gets us talking about.
Yeah, I think the first step is conversation. I mean, I don't know if it's as common over for you guys, but over here, there's a lot of Asian initiatives now, a lot in universities and things like that, and libraries, kind of, public places having free tampons and free pads, which is great. My university does that, or they used to do it anyway. I think they still do. It's changed formats a bit throughout the years. So because, we don't always have like a pound or whatever on you to put in the machine. Sometimes they don't work, sometimes they're empty, sometimes you don't bring anything with you. And just having them freely available, I think, is another way to kind of challenge the stigma, because, it's saying to people, it's okay to walk around, even if it is within a bathroom, with a pad or a tampon in your hand. It's a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Do we have that here?
Yeah, in some places. We should have it more.
I don't see that very often.
Well, yeah. And they should put it in men's bathrooms.
They should, yeah, because even, for no other reason than kind of like dads with younger children, like, I'm sure, like, obviously we've all seen kind of little boys coming into the women's bathroom with their mums. I don't know whether dads take the little girls into the bathroom, but if they did, they might need, tampons or pads there as well.
I mean, Yeah, Mike's taken
That's happened.
our children into the bathrooms. I've taken them into the bathrooms with me. And it should be that both bathrooms, all bathrooms that are public, should have access to those things, because it's unpredictable sometimes. You can't, and even if you know it's coming, you don't always have the preparation. And we shouldn't be made to feel like what is a part of nature is disgusting and repulsive and, something to hide. And, yeah, you should clean up around the area if you've bled everywhere. But, I mean, they do that anyway. You don't leave a gunshot wound blood all over the floor. This is where I had my gunshot. You don't do that. So that is expected. But, if you leak, shit happens.
Yeah. You can't always control it. But I remember, I don't remember what year it was, but it was maybe 2019, something like that, pre-COVID. I remember I'd been to the hairdressers with my mum, and I got in the car and everything to go home. I got home, I got off, and I realised I'd bled into the seat. And I was thinking, being absolutely mortified, worried that had I bled through in the hairdressers or not. And again, obviously, it's no one really, wants to see that. But at the end of the day, it is something that can happen, and I'm sure everyone has gone through that at some point. But yeah, it's just it is such a stigma around menstruation.
And it shouldn't be. I mean, I don't like sitting in my blood, but it's uncomfortable to me. But, it happens. Sometimes you leak, sometimes you don't catch it in time. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that.
No.
We shouldn't be made to feel ashamed of something that happens. I mean, imagine if we shamed everybody for, sneezing.
Exactly. Yeah. You'd be like, ooh, get your snot away. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not horrible to be fair, but
Yeah, snot's a different thing. Yes, definitely be shamed of yourself if you got like snot flinging everywhere.
Yeah, don't do that. But it's slightly more socially acceptable as opposed to kind of have a runny nose. Okay.
And it's not to equate snot with blood, because it's not the same thing. Snot can cause sickness and different illnesses. Blood doesn't. Well, usually. It doesn't cause, other things. It's just, a little Dawn, if it's on your clothes, gets out the blood stain. If it's on leather or things like that, a little cleaner gets it out. It's a part of life. It's, nosebleeds. You don't shame people for nosebleeds.
No. You're not like, be gone, you dirty nosebleeder. Like, that's a slur, doesn't it? That's awful. That sounds horrible. But you don't say things like that to people because I've had a nosebleed. So why should it be any different?
Yeah, the spot shouldn't matter where it's coming from. Blood is blood. It's still blood, and we're gonna do it. We can't help that. And unless we hit menopause or
like full on soapbox mode.
But it's just, unless menopause happens,
that's how it is.
That's how it is. And if you want, babies to happen, blood has to happen.
Yeah.
We have to get used to.
Yeah.
And studying it. The fact that it took until I think last year that feminine hygiene products were tested with actual blood.
And the adverts and things were just shown with water. And it's like, well, no one's throwing a load of water over the pad or the tampon, are they?
Yeah, I'm not, sitting there going, ooh, let me see if it's absorbent. Oh, look, it's absorbent of water. A totally different consistency. Who'd have thought? I mean, I'm not even a scientist, and I knew it was two different consistencies.
Yeah.
And the fact that it took them until last year to realize maybe we should actually see if it absorbs blood, not just water.
It's like such a genius move.
And it's just like, how many people were embarrassed and suffering in silence because they thought that they were bleeding too much or not necessarily enough in order for those things to absorb. So you've got that stigma of, well, it doesn't work right for me, it's uncomfortable or something like that. It's because it's based off of water, not our blood.
Yeah, because there's advertisements of like, it holds, up to 3 times more than another period product or whatever. And it's like, but if you say, unless it's being tested with blood, it's not going to be an accurate study.
Right. And I don't understand why it took them that long to figure that out.
Very, very strange. But yeah, I think, kind of menstrual issues just need to be destigmatized. Obviously, more research needs to be done too, but
way more.
Get the stigma out as well. And I do think this is something that is changing, because there's more like celebrities and that coming forward. I don't know if you know Ella Henderson. She's a singer. But she's just shared her endometriosis diagnosis.
Halsey, I believe, has endometriosis as well.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think of any other celebrities off the top of my head, but yeah, she say Halsey as well. Just needs to be spoken about more.
Yeah,
that's the first step, as you say, of breaking the stigma about it.
We need to talk about it all of our pain, so that people realize that we're people too. We're human, and unfortunately, humans are born perfect. And all of those issues and ailments that we have, that was meant to happen. And I don't like saying it was meant to happen, like fate or something, but it does. And we're worthy of just as much care and such as people who don't necessarily get cramps or don't have any issues whatsoever. I mean, there are people that I would love to slap that, talk about at how they never have had any type of, period pain. It's like, get away from me. What the fuck? Don't tell me at how you had a happy period. The rest of us don't.
Yeah. And as you say, no matter what your pain is, no matter what your symptoms are, all pain is valid, and as my research is so important, because it's looking at kind of these issues and reading how as a society we can understand them today. And I just find it so fascinating. And as you say, all pain's valid, no matter what you have or don't have. Everyone's symptoms and issues are valid regardless. Just because if you can't see them, it doesn't mean they're not important. They're not there.
Right. And a lot of these diseases that we acquire as we age, because people love to say, well, we're getting all of these sudden diseases. Well, part of it is, of course, our environment and all of that stuff. If you put chemicals in the water and you drink the chemicals, that's going to cause shit. But it's also, we're living a lot longer. I mean, 100 years ago, at the age of 47, would be considered grandma. I would be like grandma, great-grandma age, basically, 100 years ago. So, us living longer, DNA kind of changes as we age. It breaks down, it rearranges. What are you doing?
Nothing. That wasn't me. I think that was the ghost.
Yeah. Everybody who listens, I have been ghosted out and my camera and all that stuff. So apparently the ghost wanted to add stuff, but that was spooky.
Someone's put their input in.
Yeah, the ghost is saying, "Yeah, you tell them." As I was trying to say though, before I was rudely interrupted by the ghost, it's just that. I would be considered ancient and old, and now I'm hitting midlife, and midlife crisis was 20, not too terribly long ago. So the fact that midlife crisis is now pushing 50, on average, it's we're going to develop a lot more things, and so. We have to also understand that new things are going to pop up.
Yeah. And also things that weren't understood in the past. Because, you think of 1800s, you think of everyone was getting labelled with hysteria and all women were just like, whatever. It's because like things like endometriosis, menstrual health issues, would have just been gone. Oh well, you're a woman. It's hysteria. Stick that label on it and shut up.
Yeah. Here, and you'd be prescribed cunnilingus, or which I don't mind. But I mean, come on. I at least would like it with somebody I know, not just my doctor.
Yeah. Here's an enema and some opium. And,
yeah. They used,
get on with it.
I mean, some of the things that they did in history, like literally blowing smoke up a person's ass. Like, what the fuck? What the hell made you think that was going to do anything?
Oh, who knows?
It's weird stuff. I mean, that they used to do, and we understand things better. And maybe our diseases were around, and it's just we now have names for it.
Yeah, of course.
We're out of time. I'm sorry.
You should be. We have to talk again.
It does go so quick.
It does go way too quick. We'll have to talk again because I really would love to talk more about the Jane. Jane Austen and how, all of those different...
The ghost is back.
Yeah, the ghost is back. What the fuck, ghost? Leave us alone. We're trying to talk here.
What cut me off before it was like, stop.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
For having me, it's been great.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Please leave a rating for us wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Othering Podcast is brought to you by Loudcore Productions in conjunction with your support. Your host, Mike and Dory Morris, graphics by Joshua Morris, and join us next week on the Othering Podcast.